is going on, guys? Welcome back to Yelling and Propelling. I hope you're having a great day. Shout out Cle Anthony Early, shout out Leon Rose, and shout out A Hit to the Head, which is my friend Brendan's podcast and website. He's actually going quite viral right now for a video he caught of his brother's buddy tossing a hat onto a NHL player's stick. I couldn't tell you the name of the player, but tossed a hat from, however many rows back, 5-6 rows back, and it landed on his stick. He caught it. You got to check out the video. So go check out A Hit to the Head on Twitter and all podcast platforms. Brendan does a great job with the podcast and the website, so go check him out. But once again, welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about how high exactly is RJ Barrett's ceiling with the Knicks for the coming years. He's obviously a budding star in this league this year. You could call it a breakout year. He's had kind of, steady progress, steady, jumps in his game in each categories for the past 3 years. So, we're going to debate, and we're going to talk. Well, I'm not debating with anybody. It's just me, myself, and I. So I myself am going to talk about how high is RJ Barrett's ceiling. As always, let's first recap what's happened in the past week for the Knicks, how the games have gone. I got to take us back to last Thursday to begin, and that was the day that we were officially eliminated from playoff contention. We were on a stretch of like a win one, lose one, kind of just couldn't really build any momentum, couldn't get a winning streak going, which is what we needed to stay in the playoff run, but we weren't able to do that. With the Hawks win on last Thursday, they knocked us out. Of course, it was the Hawks, right? So they knocked us out of playoff contention. Our first meaningless game after being eliminated came against the Cleveland Cavaliers on April 2nd, and although it was the day after April Fool's, it was a joke. It was a joke of a game. It was boring. It was not a fun game to watch. RJ had a nightmare game. 12 points, 4 for 18 from the field. That's just... No, yeah, I don't want to speak too much on this game. This game was boring. Obi had 20 points. He was our leading scorer. It was cool to see him, score a nice 20, in his starting role. But, yeah, moving on to Sunday, that was a little better. Thankfully, we had the Magic, and the Magic aren't great. And actually, they're not good at all. They're the worst team in the league. But against the Orlando Magic, the second of a back-to-back, we won by 31-18 to 88. Great performances all around. Literally the exact opposite of the day prior. IQ, Emmanuel quickly had a triple-double off the bench. Only, don't quote me on this, the third Knick ever to have a triple-double off the bench. It was like Mark Jackson and one other person. That sounds right. I'm not positive, but like I said, don't quote me on that. Back-to-back 20-point games for Obi. Once again, he was starting. Julius was shut down for the season. I'm not sure I definitely did not mention that in the last podcast episode. So Obi's been starting at power forward and doing a phenomenal job. I'm loving what I'm seeing from him. And it was a quiet bounce-back game for RJ, 27 points and 5 assists. And listen to this stat. So in the third quarter, we outscored the Orlando Magic, get ready for this, 37-15. So, yes, I know it's the Magic, and yeah, these games are, who cares, right? We're playing for nothing at this point besides pride. But 37-15 is, insane. That is bonkers for a quarter. Moving along to Wednesday, which was last night's game against the Brooklyn Nets in MSG, we lost again to the Nets, and they sweep us on the series 4-0. Not fun. I'm just gonna move along. Well, listen, the game was fun. I mean, the first half was awesome. We were dominating them in every facet of the game. I mean, we had a 19-0 run at one point in the first half, the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. 19-0 run against, the best offense in the league, against KD and Kyrie. They were both playing. There was no excuse there. And Jericho Sims was playing out of his mind. Mitch was out with a non-COVID illness and will be out for Friday's game as well. But, Jericho Sims played, 36 minutes because Tibbs just, doesn't know what a minutes restriction is. Jericho Sims played out of his mind. He was the MVP of that game for me. At least the first half. The second half was you could just tell it was coming. The lead was 17 at halftime. We brought it up to 21. The third quarter, we had a 21-point lead and just blew it in the fourth. But it makes sense, right? It makes sense. These guys, the Nets have Kyrie and KD. two of like the best scorers of all time, and there was steam, man. There was steam blowing out of my ears seeing Kyrie wave goodbye after Patty Mills hit that dagger in the fourth. Man, yeah, I got to move along. I might get a little rowdy here. Yeah, so that just about wraps that up. And you know what else is just about wrapped up? That's the 2021-2022 season for the Knicks. And, like, it was a disaster. So definitely anticipate a video or a new podcast episode from me within the next few weeks, titled something along the lines of "Why was this season such a disaster for the New York Knicks?" Because it obviously was, and I'm going to try to break that down. But for now, we're going to talk about one of the bright spots from this season, and that was the play of R.J. Barrett. The dude has continued to prove the doubters wrong. Season after season, he's improved where improvement is needed. First season with the Knicks, 14.3 points per game. Second season, 17.5. This season, he's up to 20.1. He's finally... He would be well above 20 points per game this season if it wasn't for like that horrific start to the season he had, and we were just kind of moving away. It was really sad to see because we were like moving away from him as like a scoring option. He was kind of just left in the corner, whatever, and I'm so glad he was able to bounce back. So if it wasn't for that first like stretch when he came back from injury, I want to say in January, basically ever since 2022 has been getting going. I think he's averaging something like 25 points per game, which is up there with the league leaders. So that's insanity. So if Julius Randle isn't our face of the franchise for the coming years, we know who is, and his name is Rowan Alexander Barrett. So how high exactly is RJ's ceiling with the Knicks? It's been a topic of discussion ever since the day he was drafted. Everything went from this guy's a bust when he came out and in summer league and had pretty disappointing performances. People thought he was the next Maple Mamba, they were calling him. So people were hoping it's Kobe, Canadian Kobe, coming in to save the franchise. Obviously he wasn't that from day one, and so people have called him a bust all these years. After this season, RJ has pretty much put all of those naysayers 6 feet under and turned non-believers into believers, but you can see the polarized opinions that the public has had for this guy. So what is it looking like now? Well, it's looking like the dude is poised for his first All-Star appearance next season, and that's almost like guaranteed, right? Like the constant step-ups in his game, next season, first All-Star appearance is the next step. But I want to take it a step further and pose the question. It's like a long question, but let me explain. Do we, as Knicks fans, see R.J. Barrett becoming a 8 to 10 time All-Star by the end of his career? Do we see him leading the Knicks in winning seasons, and then do we see him morphing himself into the true definition of a face of the franchise player for the New York Knicks? And this is something that needs to be settled right now. We need to figure this out right now because this offseason, RJ is eligible for his first extension, just like the rest of the 2019 draft class, guys like John Morant, Zion Williamson, ever heard of those guys? So this isn't just any old extension, though. This extension can max out at 5 years and $181 million. That's $181 million more dollars than I'm making right now. That's a lot of money. And by the way, the Knicks haven't re-signed a draft pick off of his rookie deal since Charlie Ward. And guess how long ago that was? Yeah, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years ago? No, it was 20 years ago, my friends. 2 decades. So if you're just thinking to yourself, why is this even a question? If the dude RJ is a beast, give him all the moolah he wants and shut up. So here's the problem with that. We just gave Julius Randle a deal very close to the max this last this previous offseason. So not only does that mean we're running out of capital to spend, it's almost like there's PTSD now from how Randle's deal has backfired on us and how we didn't give him the max, but it's still holy crap, what an overpay. He's played so horrible. And just now saying that out loud made me realize that probably part of the reason why Julius Randle didn't sign the full max contract last season is not only because to show his commitment to winning for the team and to give us cap space to sign free agents in the near future, but also probably as a gesture to RJ saying you sign the max contract next season, I'm cool with this money, and showing that, like, we're going to do this together. Because you sign the max contract, if he were to sign the max contract last offseason, that makes this decision even more complicated and could definitely make it so that we have to choose between one of the two players. I truly don't know how likely it would be that Barrett has any interest in signing anything less than the max deal this summer. I mean, I feel like there's definitely, like, it's RJ. Like, he's not like, give me the max, I'm not taking anything less. He's definitely not that type of guy. But I don't know, like, if we just go up to him open with, like, take $100 million for 5 years, or okay, well, that is way less than 181 million. But if we open with something that's way less like that, we don't want to insult him with a friggin' offer, and it's a tough scenario, right? Yeah, it's tough, but somebody's got to come to his decision, and for the time being, I will. My decision is that we should pay RJ whatever he asks us. Obviously, we negotiate with him and say, look, we don't have much, an insane amount of cap space to work with. We just signed your buddy Julius to that contract last season. You've been on the court with him plenty of times. You know how he's played. So, work with us, right? And we give him what he asked for. He will work with us. He's RJ Barrett. He's a good dude, right? Everybody in the franchise loves RJ. So we sign him. We don't just, let him, like, play out this next season and then, like, have him be a restricted free agent in 2023. We don't do that. I would be furious if we were to do that. So that leads me into why I think RJ Barrett's ceiling is so tremendously high. And by tremendously high, I'm not trying to tell you that I guarantee the man will surpass Michael Jordan in terms of greatness and the GOAT of basketball. That's not what I'm telling you. I think that RJ Barrett is our guy. He will be the face of the franchise for the next umpteen years. I glossed over this just about 10 minutes ago, but his points per game over his first 3 seasons in the NBA has steadily increased by 3 each season, 14.3 in his rookie season, 17.6 last season, and then up to 20.1 for this season. But let me go over his turnovers, because that's my favorite part. Well, not my favorite part about his game. I'm trying to say that the progression. So 2.2 turnovers in his rookie season, right? Standard. 1 point down to 1.9 last year, and then back up to 2.2 this year. But let me explain why that's a good thing. So, to explain it, all you need to understand is usage rate, and a player's usage rate is basically just like an estimate of the percentage of the team plays that the player's involved in while they're on the floor. So, RJ's usage rate in his rookie season was 24. Again, pretty standard, actually a little high, if anything. Last season it went down a tad to 23.4. So then this season they spiked up to 27.6. So with his usage rate going up a full 4% and the turnovers, like, it's a very minuscule change in the amount of turnovers he averages per game, I think that's an absolutely phenomenal sign. You know what I think is the biggest telltale sign that RJ Barrett is good and is going to be great in this league that won't show up on a stat sheet per se? It's his consistency from this season, particularly 2022, because I want to reiterate once again that the beginning of the season did not go as planned. He was almost he was almost phased out of our offense, and beginning of January, mid-January, say, he just started to catch fire from 3, and obviously, as for any player, when you have a three-point shot that defenders need to respect and need to run you off the three-point line, then it opens up a whole new element to your game. I don't care how mediocre you may be at scoring inside and, driving into the paint and causing havoc, and that way you have a three-point shot that needs to be respected. You're going to unlock so many other elements to your game, especially in today's NBA. So that's what's happened for RJ. He's had that consistent three-point shot come along, and he's able to drive to the basket with confidence more, and he's developed like a post game too. If you have watched many of the games, you'll see that he likes to get very close within like 10, 12 feet of the basket and then kind of back down to the defender, because normally he'll have a guy that he can overpower or has a couple inches on backing down to the post, and then can hit a fadeaway on him or just spin into like a layup and get fouled, whatever it is. He's unlocked that new element to his game. And I think so much of it is because of that 3-point shot, because you can't leave them open, right? And it's consistent too. Like, you have guys that, like, if they're on fire, you watch them. If they're not, let them shoot. RJ Barrett's 3-point shot is consistent, or we don't even need to say that it is consistent. We can just say that it can be consistent, come within the next few years. And the percentages won't show you that. That's why you need to do more than just look at stat sheets. You can't just look at the most basic stats for a player, compare one season to the next, whatever you're doing, and just say, wow, this guy was good, now he's trash, or, this guy's having a great year. You can't just look at stats, because both could be proven a wrong way. Like, you could look at a guy and say, look at only his stats, only like his most basic stats, and say, yeah, he's putting up good numbers, he's having a good year. Is it leading to winning basketball? Is it? There's so much that goes into it, so much. So if you that's why when you look at these crazy Knicks fans that are like, RJ Barrett is the future. The future. They're losing their minds because they've seen what RJ's done this season. And it's not just one game. He had that 46-point performance against Miami. That was wonderful. But it's not just that. It's not like we're still riding the hype from that. We're not even talking about the hype from last season. We're talking about this absolute tear that he's been on since, mid to late January and then all the way through March. He's just been on a tear, shooting high percentages, like scoring efficiently, and assist numbers, rebound, everything's up for him. And that's what we've seen. And it's hard to look at the season, the total season statistics, and then just like pick those out from like that run. But when you watch the games, that he's proven. I was originally talking about a 3-point shot. When you watch the games, you'll realize that he has proven that he can consistently shoot the 3-ball. Like, it's not like, it's not as guaranteed as death and taxes, but, it can be consistent. And there are players that we've seen in this league that have a good 3-point shot, but can never prove it to be consistent enough to where, they're a viable option for a team every single night. You got guys that get hot. I get hot on a basketball court, and I'll hit a couple threes in a game. But I'm not consistent enough to be getting $181 million per year. Let me lay out 2 critiques of RJ Barrett's game. One of which I think is a valid criticism, and like I'm okay with. But then the other one I think is absolute horse crap. So I'll go with the more like fun one first. I'll go with the horse crap one, and that's that RJ Barrett does not have the elite athleticism that you would want from somebody you're saying has a high ceiling. And to that like you can just dismiss that by looking over at Dallas. Luka Doncic does not have anywhere near elite athleticism. I'm pretty sure I can run a 40 faster than him, and like he's just dominating the league, right? He has been for a couple of years now, and like he's slow. He's slow, but he's like methodical, and he breaks down a defense, and that's one way I think he's similar to RJ, is that the way they're able to read the defense, right? Like it's all about read and react. You can't sit there and think of what to do. Should I dribble this ball through the defender's legs, right? You have to read and react, and I think these two guys I just mentioned, RJ obviously, and Luka Doncic, I think they do that super well, and you don't need blazing speed to be able to be really good at reading and reacting to a defense. So I think like the criticism that he does not have like his athleticism, like he's not super quick, he doesn't jump out of the gym. I think that like just doesn't, like there's tons of players that don't have it. Like I think that's a stupid criticism to say, like make that a reason as to why like you can't set his ceiling super high, right? So the other criticism that I mentioned, this one that I actually think is valid, is his free throw percentage. So in his rookie season, his free throw percentage was an abysmal 61%. Second season, it improves to 74%. That's much better, and we're on the right track. But this season, he backtracks a bit. 3%. He goes down to 71%. Now, I think that I've heard Clyde talk about it plenty of times, and people, it's pretty obvious that if you want to be a 23, 25 points per game scorer in this league, you have to hit your free throws at a higher clip than, 70%. And obviously, the regression from last year to this year is alarming in itself. Yeah, it's not insane. It's 3%. But here's the thing. Like I said, I think that's a fair critique. Like, that's totally true. I totally agree 100% that you need to hit your free throws at a higher clip if you want to be a 25 points per game scorer. Here's the thing. I think RJ Barrett easily has the work ethic to get into the gym, shoot 500 free throws this summer, come back next season, and shoot 81, 82%. I'll call it right now that I think RJ Barrett will shoot 81.5% from the free throw line next season. Like, it's the mental thing, really, right? Like, if you play basketball, you know that free throws, like, they're not that complicated. They're the only that should be the easiest shot. They're the only shot where there's not a defender on you. It's just your mental. Your biggest defender in that situation is yourself, and the voice in your head saying, "Oh, you better not miss this one." So like, obviously you don't need a legendary work ethic to get into the gym and improve your percentage from the line, right? So where does that leave me, and where does that leave us in terms of how high RJ Barrett's ceiling really is? Well, I've said it multiple times on this episode. For next season, I fully believe it will be his first All-Star appearance, just as a backup, All-Star backup, but not a starter. Nevertheless, a first All-Star appearance next season. And then looking forward into the distant future, I think at the peak of his career, I can truly imagine RJ averaging something like 26 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists at the absolute peak of his career, say 3-4 years in the future, maybe even 5. We'll have to see. I think that the consistency that I was referencing earlier will become a staple of his game. He will be known as this super consistent scorer and defender. Like, that's something that people gloss over, is that RJ not only has everything he brings to the table on offense, his playmaking and, 3-point shooting ability, like all that, right? People forget that RJ is a very, very capable defender, and that's putting it lightly. Like, he might even have potential to become one of the best wing defenders in the league, right? Like, there's just so much potential there. There's so much to like, because not only is the dude great and getting better every season, he has the entire city backing him. Like, point me to a Knicks fan that isn't a huge RJ Barrett fan, that just sees RJ as yeah, he's all right. Like if he's on the team in 5 years, I wouldn't really mind. Like, I don't really care. Like, point me to a fan like that, and I'll take a red circle and put it on his nose and honk it, because that is a clown if I've ever seen one. But yeah, dude, let me wrap up by saying this last thing, that these predictions are tough. Like, particularly now, because it's Julius Randle is such a question mark. Like, we don't know whether he's going to be back next season, and it's so huge for RJ, because if he gets dealt in the offseason, unless we bring in, Donovan Mitchell, like, say we deal him, for whatever, and RJ becomes that number one option for next season, like, I think it's a valid criticism that he might take a step back and struggle a bit with that role, so many players do their first season as the number one option and the main guy that sees the double teams and all that on a team. But yeah, when I make those predictions, I'm just kind of assuming that Julius Randle gets dealt in the offseason. It's such a messy scenario, obviously. We're probably not going to get much in return for him, but yeah, that's what I think for RJ. I think his ceiling is super high, and I understand some of the critiques, but I feel like those won't even be worth mentioning. 3-4 years down the line, I feel like he will have greatly improved upon those, the free throw shooting, and he'll develop certain things, like the weak points of his game, like his lack of a floater right now, and he struggles from mid-range, stuff like that. I feel like he'll just improve upon that in the coming off season, and I truly believe in his work ethic. I believe in RJ Barrett. But you guys tell me how high you think RJ Barrett's ceiling really is. Was I lowballing it a bit, playing it safe with my predictions, or Was I just way too outrageous for a guy that has yet to shoot above 75% from the free throw line? But like I said, you tell me. And thank you for tuning into episode number 3 of Yelling and Propelling. It is 4 o'clock in the morning and I am exhausted, but don't worry about me. I'll be all right. Listen, I hope you guys are staying safe. There was a new ocean formed with the amount of rain that fell today, so stay safe, and I can't wait to see you again. I hope you have a superb rest of your day or night. Hope to see you again soon. Go Knicks.